Hello, sweet friend. My name is Maike, and in this video, I would like to have a little chat about my currently inked fountain pens. I have them all right here in my pen case. I think I have 7 inked, and that's, yeah, not an unusual number, but also I was recently traveling and I did forget to pack some of my converters, so this is just sort of like a make do situation. And as you can see, this notebook is also coming apart, which is totally my fault. But again, we're just rolling with it. And I am currently house and pet sitting, so I also didn't bring the ink samples. So we're not gonna do big swatches, but I'm just gonna do a little doodle with each of the colors and have a chat about what I think so far. So yeah, just a little bit of a heads up before we get into all of this. But let's just start with the first one that is right here. No need to make this more complicated than it has to be, she says, after having rambled on about all the things that are not normal about this setup. But this is my Kaweco Art Sport in the Hickory Brown. And I have this currently inked with the Birmingham Penn Kentucky Bluegrass. And let's zoom you in slightly so you can actually see the color. And I'm hoping this is starting up because I have had this inked, oh yeah, there we go, for a couple weeks now. This was one of the fountain pens that I actually took on the plane with me. Standing upright so that it doesn't burp and bleed everywhere, which went well, but as you can see, it has a little bit of a hard start situation, and I feel like the color may have darkened up somewhat, but it's yeah, I think so. It's usually a really nice grassy green, and given that I have just left the Kentucky Bluegrass to come to Germany and visit my family and friends, I thought it would be nice to have this inked, and also given that it's such a nice spring color, I felt like that was very timely. I don't know, do you sometimes pick colors based on their names and their associations rather than necessarily the color itself, even though in this instance the color also works just fine for right now. I found that greens are just such a good go-to. They pretty much always work and fit many spreads. So yeah, that's really nice. And so yeah, let's write down, this is the Birmingham. And this was kindly sent to me by lovely pen friend from Simona's Discord. It's always so nice how willing people are to share their inks. And yeah, I have a feeling this might need to actually be changed soon. Let's see here what we can see. Oh yeah, just a little bit. By the way, is this normal? Do you have that where sometimes in a converter, or specifically I think in these Kaweco converters, where there's ink that gets stuck in the back there? I'm not sure. It's always kind of weird. Yeah, this is pretty much almost empty. So yeah, this yeah, it is currently inked, but I guess this was the last little bit of it, which maybe speaks to how nice the color is. And then next up, right next to it, well, this is the, I'll skip that one because, yeah, reasons I'll get to in a moment. This is my TWSBI Diamond Mini with a fine nib. And in here is another sample that was sent to me by a lovely pen friend. This is from Mandy. Thank you so much, Mandy. She sent me the most lovely happy mail right before I left the States. We'll have to do like a swatching video for all of those wonderful colors she sent me. This is a Kakimori specialty color. This is called Favorite Toy, and it's this beautiful blue-green, I would say. Right now it maybe looks a little bit more blue than green, but yeah, I feel like it really sits in the middle of those two colors. It's very soft, which is nice, and with the idea of this favorite toy, I don't know how familiar you are with the color specimen line of Kakimori you are, because they take inspiration by these events or these objects and they turn them into, well, ink colors, of course. And yeah, this one is based on a toy, but yeah, it's just the cutest little color. It is so soft, and I think I would be very much trying to hunt down a bottle if I could find one, because these do also sell out eventually because they're limited run. But Kakimori inks, I love that they're waterproof, so you could watercolor over them, which, yeah, would be right up my alley. However, they take forever to dry. And I find that is antithetical to the idea of making a quick sketch and being able to watercolor, especially if you're on the go, traveling, and you want to capture something. I'm not going to sit there and wait 20 minutes for a page to dry. Yeah, that's the only thing. Otherwise, this is, yeah, beautiful. I mean, I might still try and find a bottle just because I like the colors so much, although I guess there's also other colors that are similar to this and are cheaper. If you have an idea for a color that is similar, let me know, because I always love these kinds of shades of blue-green. So there's that. If you enjoy seeing inks swatched like this in this doodle format, also check out Mandy's channel. I'll have her linked below. She is Bookish artist on YouTube and on Instagram, I think. I might be getting that mixed up, but yeah, she's definitely linked, and she's been doing a similar thing where she, rather than swatching the color, she goes in and does a cute little doodle, and she makes incredible art with her fountain pens and sketches in her journals and stuff like that. So yeah, that's definitely a recommendation there. This is turning out very scribbly because this is almost running out of ink, but maybe that shows the color a little better, even though I'm pretty certain that that's darkened up over time. All right, that's those two. I think, yeah, it was also really nice color for spring, the favorite toy there. Next up, I have my Pilot E95S in the medium nib, and I still haven't taken up the sticker. I'm usually not one to keep stickers like this on her fountain pens, but also now that it's been on there for so long, I kind of feel like, well, maybe I should leave it on. I don't know. Do you take your stickers off? I feel like under Pilot collectors, that's a thing to keep the stickers on, but I don't know. All right, in here we have a wonderful color that is made by Matthew Chen from The Wet Pen, another YouTube channel I can highly recommend. And yeah, this is his color Penn Cove Mussel. And it's this wonderful dusky lavender gray, I would say. And this has also been inked for some time. This has also traveled on the airplane with me, so this might also be maybe a smidgen darker. But yeah, this has been a favorite. And not only does Matthew does a wonderful job with having his inks be very nicely flowing, but I am surprised how much I enjoy this color. I am usually someone who gravitates more towards warm colors, and this is more grayish cool, but because it has these lavender undertones, it's just so soothing. And I would say this is a wonderful ink for everyone who, you know, isn't into the bright springy colors, but still wants something that feels fresh in a way. And I would say that like purple or lavender colors are very springy, but because this has also these grayish tones, it just works really well. And this is supposed to be a tea kettle. I'm not sure if that reads or not. But yeah, this has been quite the favorite. And I've been noticing, because I also like to draw and doodle with my fountain pen so much, I like these kinds of colors that have definitely a color to them, but they're dark enough to have a lot of contrast if I go in and, for example, color this with a marker, you know? Yeah, hope that makes sense. I've been really enjoying the darker colors that are still a color and are not so far into a, you know, black that it becomes like a blue black or purple black in this instance. But no, it's still its own thing. Yeah, really, really nice. And I think that these two, yeah, they have a freshness to them that's just really pleasant right now. Okay, let's see. Moving on. We have, let's do this one. This is my Sailor Progress Slim, and I'm blanking on the name for this color right now, but it's this corally pink, which is a color I love, but it often doesn't quite come across true to color on certain photos, but yeah, so pretty. This is with a medium nib, and this is a super interesting color that I put in here. This is Colorverse Hahoe mask, and I'm really uncertain if I'm saying that correctly, or rather, should I say, I'm very certain that I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly, the other way around. But it is this orangey apricot color that matches the pen quite well. However, there's also this beige tone that settles in once the ink dries, and it's because this is the color inspiration for this ink is based on these Hahoe masks and I hope I'm remembering this correctly, in Korea. And so they're made out of wood, and it's this very light wood. And so the reason this ink shades to like a gray is because they tried to model this wood color, which is really interesting. So this, I'm now noticing a trend. This is also one of those colors, like an orangey apricot, that could easily be quote unquote too much for some people in terms of how bright and saturated it can get, or even downright garish in certain instances. But then because it has these gray beige undertones, it actually dries down quite, almost gets a matte finish, if that makes sense. And so it keeps it from going garish or too bright. And so, yeah, it is a color without being too much, if that makes any sense. And I think I should have looked this up, but I think there's an E after the O. Please excuse me if I'm getting this wrong. Yeah. I hope you can see those grayish undertones. especially in her scarf. I think it's coming out. Yeah, it's quite an interesting color. I'm glad I got it in a sample because I'm not quite sure if this would be ultimately a bottle color for me. Yeah, but definitely unique. And then we have another sailor. This is a Pro Gear, just a regular Pro Gear with also a medium nib. I've been really loving the sailor medium nibs. It's just so nice. If only they weren't so expensive, right? So this is inked with a color I think I've had this inked in for the whole year. Like this is already the second time I have this ink in a pen. And this is Sailor Tsurubame. And it's this earthy brown, but a brown that leans more like a yellow brown. And it's just so soothing, such a soothing brown. It's soft, but it still has contrast. One of those again. And yeah, I haven't gotten tired of this color yet because it's special, and yet it's so unassuming. So you kind of don't mind having this again. Have you ever had a color like that where somebody who isn't into inks could think like, oh, it's just a boring brown, but you go like, oh, but no, but it's not. It has all these different undertones and shades to it. And also I've found that colors like these are handy to have in a lineup because if you're note taking and you don't want the page to be too much about the color, if that makes any sense, then these are just really good photos. Yeah, a neutral that still is interesting and where you still feel like, I'm glad I'm using a fountain pen rather than just a brown gel pen. You know what I mean? And so this is definitely it for me. So if you haven't tried this one out yet, I can highly recommend it. It's a really nice, really nice color. And part of it too, though, I mean, I said all of these lovely things about the color. Part of it too, though, was that I have this as what do you call this? A cartridge. And I'm still waiting on these other converters that I ordered because the Sailor converters was one of the things that I forgot to pack. And so I wanted to make life easy for me and I wanted to use this pen. And so cartridge it was. And then given how much I enjoy this color, it was an easy decision to make. Yeah, let me know. Are you in the Tsurubame fan club? Or what is your go-to neutral that is still interesting enough to be like, yeah, I'm using a fountain pen and this is ink. Let me know. And I do still think that this is also a brown that fits within spring where slowly the green starts popping up. It's not a fallish brown necessarily, probably because it has those yellow undertones rather than leaning more red. Yeah. Not that every brown needs to immediately be associated with fall, but it's nice to also see different browns that are very much more shifting into other areas. I don't know. I'm babbling. Okay, what else do we have? All right. Let's do this is a little bit of a, not problem child, but I think I made a mistake in putting in too much white lightning. So I filled this. This is a Benu. This is the blanking Atelier Amore in yeah, this is such a beautiful pen, and the nib writes so well. So if this is going to do what it did to me on one of my journal pages, it's not the pen's fault, but it's my mistake. This is inked with Diamine Lullaby, and Lullaby is a little bit of a dry ink, or at least I felt like it was, and I wasn't in the mood to deal with the dry ink, and so yeah, I put White Lightning in it, and I probably did way too much accidentally, even though I know better usually. And so on one of my pages, it burped and kind of ruined the drawing. So I'm gonna have to do some paper surgery where I'm just gonna cut out a piece of paper and glue it over top. Because of course the pen burped right in a face that I was drawing. So that's a little unfortunate, but this is another one of those colors that I'm surprised at how much I like it. Again, I'm usually more of a warm color person, and so purples aren't usually my go-tos. But this is, I don't know, maybe it is the spring season, or maybe I'm just having fun exploring things that are not my go-tos right now. But yeah, this is really, really nice. So this is Diamine, and that was an ink vent color. I don't remember what year it was, but Lullaby. Yeah, it's just, again, another soft color that, I mean, it's certainly more saturated than all of these other colors, but it still has quite a softness to it, especially just in writing. If you put that into a finer pen too, this is a medium nib, and Schmidt nibs are already pretty juicy, I feel like. And then the fact that I also put White Lightning onto this ink, yeah, makes this quite the gusher. So I may have to put this in a pile with this and do something else. So we might have a follow-up video where I ink up the other pens and also address some of those now empty or problematic inkings. And then last but certainly not least is my Sailor Pro Gear Slim Mini. This is my workhorse. If I'm only taking one pen out and about, it's this one. I love this thing. I don't know. I was brave and actually worked on this nib. This is a medium fine, and made it write a little bit wetter. So especially for quick sketches, this is just my favorite nib to use. It's just the right amount of feedback. It's the right amount of wet. And I just feel I have so much control over my lines. It's just, yes, this is a favorite of mine. And so because I use it so often and want it to be my go-to, I often have this inked with a waterproof ink, just for the occasions where I want to go over my drawings with watercolor or marker. And then I usually pick a dark color, again, just for simplicity's sake. If this is my take this, if you don't take anything else, then I want it to be the most versatile. So right now that choice is the Atramentis document ink in Sepia. And I used to think that the document brown was my favorite the Atramentis brown ink, but I've grown quite fond of the Sepia because it's just that little bit darker, and because it is sepia, it's also that little bit more neutral, and so it's just a really nice go-to, but it's not as not as well, neutral too, but not as stark or as cold as just the black. and because I love everything that has a touch of vintage. That's obviously nice. And I know that sepias can skew all kinds of ways, but I would think that this is a fairly neutral sepia, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I've been really enjoying this, and yeah, I might be getting a bottle. Although I just today ordered some octopus fluids, write and draw samples, one of which is also a darker brown, so I'll see about that. I had an instance or an occurrence 2 years ago, and if you've been around for a while, you might remember the story where I was moving and I had left an ink in one of my pilot pens and it ruined the feed. And I don't quite remember because at the time I was trying out both the Octopus Fluids Write and Draw inks as well as some, I think it was platinum, the waterproof platinum, carbon black, yes. And so I'm not quite sure which one was in the pilot pen that got ruined. So I'm gonna move along with caution when retrying out the Octopus Fluids inks. Now granted, it was sitting in the pen for weeks without me using the pen, so that's also an extreme case. Usually this gets used daily, but yeah, we'll try those out and I'll show you once they get here, and then I'll see about whether or not I want to get a bottle of the sepia. But yeah, goes to show that sometimes you can really change your mind about what you thought was a sure decision vis-a-vis going from the brown to the sepia. But yeah, what do you think? Have you tried any of these colors? Do you feel like this is springy? It is quite neutral, maybe in terms of what you could do with a spring palette. But so far I've found these colors very useful, and sometimes that is a little bit of a consideration, right? Or a balance to be found where it's fun to have the extreme colors and the glitters and the sheens or the like loud colors, but then when it comes down to it, and I've certainly found myself in this situation when I'm traveling and I'm in transition where I just need sure hits and I need the simplicity of no matter what happens, none of these would be outrageous on a page. Like it makes it very easy to just pick a color and be happy with it, no matter what you're doing that day or journaling about. So yeah, I think this is a good palette for right now, and it's not to say that I'm not gonna add anything or get a little bit more funsy with certain other things. And yeah, I'm so that is bothering me that this is coming away. But anyway, oh, I did have a honorable mention. I almost forgot. This is my little brush pen that I've mentioned before, and it has a cartridge. It usually has a cartridge, but or a converter. My goodness, can't get my words straight. But I actually eyedropper filled this. I almost unscrewed all of this without thinking about this, but as you can see, it's sloshing around. This is filled, and maybe we can just make a little splotch here and there. Mandy, in her wonderful happy mail, she sent me one of the most kindest and thoughtful things anyone has ever sent me, just because, and that is a bottle of Inkebara's Earth, because I had mentioned on a video that I just so enjoyed the color, and I couldn't find a bottle, and she was shopping on a site in Singapore, and she came across it, and she was like, well, if I'm already ordering, I could order this for her and send it to her as a surprise gift, which is just, I mean, that's just the sweetest thing. And so now I have a bottle, and I love this color as is, but then it does something magical when you dilute it with water. And so I turned this into my own marker. I do think I'm gonna adjust the concentration a little bit. I think it could be a little bit darker, but this is a nice go-to beige. But then it has all these like greens and pinks in it, and it's just so much more interesting than, say, a straight up Tombow would be. So I'm just gonna, I think this is gonna be a pairing for life. Just to, you know, I could go in now here and add a little, do we want to do that? Yes, we do. Why, I'm just telling you that if I can just show you. So I can go in here and just give this little dress some interesting color. But I also want to play around with this as a underlayer and then go over it with watercolor. I bet you could do some interesting things with that. But yeah, I think this is going to be so fun. You can turn this into little trees, you can turn this into leaves, you can use it as just a general gray tone. But yeah, I think I might do it a little darker. And I'm very interested in getting a couple more of these brush pens, refillable brush pens, and find other chroma shading ink colors to dilute with water, and build myself a little go-to set with colors that are easy and to use and that you would use often in these kinds of setups, like a beigey brown. Well, I guess that I already have figured out now. Maybe like a green, one of those minty colors would be fun. Yeah, a pink perhaps. But yeah, really, really fun. So yay, and thank you so much, Mandy. We got to do a full-on swatching video for all the fun stuff she sent me. But yeah, that is my currently inked right now. Let me know, do you have a favorite out of this? Anything you want to try now that you've seen it? And yeah, I'm a little... I feel a little bad. I don't think this is the best representation of the Kentucky Bluegrass, but yeah. Anywho, all right. Thank you so much for sharing this time with me, and until next time, happy journaling.